I always believed my dad was slowly fading from me, pulling away in a way that left invisible bruises on my heart. I told myself it was nothing, that the ache would pass if I ignored it long enough. But the day he finally let the truth spill out quiet, trembling, raw, it shattered every assumption I carried about him, about us, about the love I thought I understood. Before I take you deeper into this, tell me, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments below. I love knowing these stories travel across quiet towns and crowded streets alike, finding people in moments they need them most. Maybe there's a familiar spot near you, a warm park bench, a kitchen glowing under late afternoon light, a street that holds echoes of who you used to be. Wherever you are, I hope this lands gently on your heart, the way it finally did on mine. My name is Emma. I'm 24. And for the longest time, I convinced myself that my dad, Nathan, had simply stopped seeing me. Not in some loud, dramatic way, no shouting, no slammed doors. Just a slow, quiet retreat that left me standing in the wreckage of unspoken words. He wasn't cruel. If anything, he grew softer, more distant, like a radio station fading to static. He'd sit on the edge of our living room couch, gaze fixed on nothing at all, even when the TV stayed dark. I'd talk about my day, and he'd nod, polite, distant, as if my voice reached him through layers of glass. I'd walk away wondering if he'd heard a single word. Our house wasn't grand, but it used to feel alive. Late afternoons brought this warm amber light that spilled across the hardwood, making dust dance like tiny sparks. When I was younger, I'd curl up beside him in that glow, listening to his steady breathing, feeling utterly safe. Back then, his laughter filled every corner. Now, silence had moved in and made itself at home. There was one evening I keep returning to, the one that felt like the first real crack. I'd come home from the little cafe downtown, carrying the scent of fresh coffee and cinnamon on my skin. Nathan got home later than usual. I could tell by the way his shoulders sagged, the way he set his keys down without the familiar soft whistle he used to hum. He passed me in the hallway with a tired smile that never quite reached his eyes. I tried to draw him out. Told him about a customer who'd attempted to pay for a latte with a handful of old foreign coins, hoping for one of his deep, rumbling laughs. Instead, he only nodded and sank into a chair at the kitchen table, as though the day had poured lead into his bones. At first, I brushed it off. Adults carry heavy things, right? We all have seasons where exhaustion wins. But weeks stretched into months, and the quiet thickened into something almost tangible, soft walls rising between us. The kind you don't notice until you're already on opposite sides. I tried reaching across them. Asked about his work, whether he'd eaten, if he wanted to drive out to the lake like we used to when I was small. His answers were gentle, brief, hollow, like speaking into fog. One night, I lingered in the living room doorway while he sat beneath the warm circle of the lamp. The light wrapped around him, but he looked like he belonged to another room entirely. "Dad," I said softly, "are you okay?" The pause stretched so long I thought he hadn't heard. Then, barely above a whisper, "Yeah, Em, just tired." The words were flat, rehearsed. They told me everything except the truth. I went to bed that night with an ache I couldn't name, wondering if I'd done something to push him away. I missed the dad who'd been my study ground, the one who taught me to ride a bike in the cul-de-sac, who made terrible dad jokes in the grocery aisle. This new quiet version of him felt like a stranger, wearing my father's face. The knot in my chest grew heavier with every passing day. Why won't he talk to me? Did I disappoint him somehow? Is he slipping away for good? I had no idea then that his silence wasn't about me at all. It was something deeper, something he was carrying alone. Terrified to share it truly began on a Saturday morning, crisp and bright, sunlight pouring over the kitchen counters like warm honey. I'd woken early, restless after another night, replying as empty, "I'm fine." When I padded into the kitchen, Nathan was already there, hands wrapped around a steaming mug. Steam curled up, but he stared straight through it, chin lowered, shoulders carrying invisible weight. In that light, the years on his face looked suddenly sharper, more visible. I hesitated in the doorway. Part of me wanted to retreat, to avoid another polite wall. But something pulled me forward. "Morning," I said quietly. He blinked, coming back from wherever he'd been, and offered a small smile. "Morning, Em." There was warmth in his voice, faint but real, like sunlight behind clouds. I slid into the chair across from him. Outside, birds chattered against the window, their shadows flickering across the glass. The ordinary sounds felt strangely loud against the weight hanging between us. I watched his hands around the mug-strong hands that had fixed my scraped knees and built sandcastles with me. After a moment, the words slipped out before I could stop them. I miss talking with you. He froze. Not dramatically, but enough that I saw his breath catch. For a heartbeat, he looked like a man standing at the edge of a confession he wasn't ready to make. I talked to you, he said, voice low. Not really, I answered. Gentle but honest. He lifted his eyes to mine then, and what I saw there stole my breath. Not anger. Not annoyance. Fear. Raw, unguarded fear in the eyes of the man who'd always been my rock. Dad never showed fear, not during thunderstorms, not when I broke my arm at 10. Seeing it now felt like watching cracked spiderweb across stone I believed unbreakable. He swallowed hard. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever feel like you're letting people down? The question landed heavy, intimate. This wasn't casual. It was personal, carved from something eating at him. Sometimes, I admitted. He nodded slowly, fingers tightening around the mug. There are things I need to tell you, Aim. Things I've been trying to find words for. But every time I open my mouth, I freeze. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the air thick with everything unsaid. Dad, I whispered, you don't have to hide from me. His eyes dropped. I noticed then the faintest tremor in his hands, barely there, but unmistakable when you were looking. He cleared his throat. Give me a little more time, I just need to find the right way. It wasn't the full truth, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall. A sliver of light. For the first time in months, hope stirred warm in my chest. He wasn't shutting me out because he didn't love me. He was protecting me from something that terrified him. As the day unfolded, I watched him differently. Not with hurt, but with quiet attention. I noticed how he drifted mid-conversation, how he squinted at the mail, how he rubbed his temples after phone calls. Small pauses, subtle hesitations I'd missed before, too wrapped in my own pain to see his. That night, lying in bed with distant traffic humming outside, I felt the shift. Something was changing in him, something he wasn't ready to name. And whatever it was bigger than tiredness or a hard season at work. What he would finally confess would tilt my entire world. But I wasn't there yet. I was only beginning to understand that sometimes the deepest silence comes not from indifference, but from love trying desperately to shield the people we cherish most. The days after that kitchen morning felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for the words Nathan still couldn't quite release. I moved through rooms more softly, noticing every small shift in him, the way he paused mid-step as if searching for the next thought, the way his fingers lingered on a doorknob a second too long. I no longer filled the quiet with frustrated questions. Instead, I watched, listened, and let a tender patience settle over me like evening light. One evening, the sun dipped low and painted the living room in that familiar golden haze I'd loved since childhood. Long shadows stretched across the shelves, brushing old framed photos, birthdays, fishing trips, moments when Dad's smile was wide and certain. He sat on the couch again, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight, gathering something I could almost feel in the air. I lowered myself into the armchair across from him, close enough to reach but giving him the space he needed. The silence wasn't sharp anymore. It was gentle, understanding. He exhaled slowly, the sound carrying months of weight. Can we talk? My heart pressed hard against my ribs. Always. He didn't meet my eyes at first. When he spoke, his voice was low, careful, like he was handling something fragile. I know I've been distant. I know it's hurt you. I opened my mouth to tell him he didn't need to apologize, but he lifted a hand not to stop me coldly, just to steady his own path. Please, let me get this out. I nodded, folding my hands in my lap. I've been trying to protect you from something I didn't want you carrying. The words landed softly but heavily, ripples spreading through the room. Protect me from what? I asked, keeping my voice steady. He drew a deep breath, leaned back, and finally looked at me. Tired lines framed his eyes, but beneath them was raw honesty. A few months ago, I started forgetting things. Small at first, where I left my keys, what I walked into a room for. Then it grew. I'd be mid-sentence and the word I needed would vanish. Or I'd see someone I've known for years and their name wouldn't come. My chest tightened. Dad never forgot anything? He was the one who remembered every birthday, every promise, every tiny detail that made you feel seen. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out softer than I expected. He rubbed his thumb across his palm, smoothing invisible creases. Because I didn't want you scared. I kept hoping it was stress, long hours at work, lack of sleep. I thought if I rested more, it would pass. Did you see a doctor? He nodded, slow. Last week. His next breath trembled on the way out, and my heart ached with it. They're running tests. They don't know yet. It might be early cognitive impairment. Could be temporary. Could be something more. The words settled between us like mist, uncertain, heavy, impossible to brush away. I moved from the armchair to the couch, close enough that our shoulders touched. He didn't pull back. Instead, he leaned the smallest bit toward me. Like I was the anchor he'd been searching for. Dad, I whispered. You don't have to carry this alone. His eyes glistened, not full tears, but close. I wasn't hiding to shut you out, Em. I was hiding because you're young. You shouldn't have to worry about this. But I'm not a child anymore, I said gently. And I'd rather know the truth than wonder why you don't want me near. He closed his eyes for a long moment, absorbing that. When he opened them, something steadier shone through. I'm scared, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Saying it seemed to cost him, yet lighten him at once. I don't like losing control of my own mind. I hate seeing worry in your eyes. And I don't know what tomorrow will look like. Neither do I said. But whatever it is, we'll meet it together. The faintest smile tugged at his mouth, relief more than joy. We sat in silence then, listening to the refrigerator's soft hum. A distant car passing outside, the quiet rhythm of our breathing sinking without effort. The quiet wasn't frightening anymore. It felt honest, shared. After a while, he spoke again, softer. I thought silence would protect you, but it only pushed you away. It's okay, I said. We both needed this. He gave a small, genuine chuckle. You've grown up on me, Em. Maybe a little, I smiled. The truth wasn't loud or cinematic. It didn't crash over us. It settled gently with a quiet ache that felt more like healing than hurt. Knowing made the distance shrink in ways silence never could. As the last sunlight faded, something inside me shifted. I understood now that silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's fear wearing a brave face. Sometimes it's love trying too hard to shield what it cherishes. The weeks that followed carried a new lightness, subtle but real, like a window cracked open on a spring morning. I noticed small things about Nathan I'd overlooked before. The way he hummed old tunes while fixing toast. The softness in his eyes when a bird landed on the windowsill. The careful notes he left himself before calls. These ordinary moments suddenly glowed with meaning. He was still here, still fighting, still sharing himself in quiet, beautiful ways. One afternoon, the sky stretched clear and brilliant blue. I suggested a walk. He agreed without hesitation. We moved slowly through the neighborhood, footsteps falling into an easy rhythm. After a while, he glanced at the trees lining the street. I used to walk this way with my own dad when I was about your age. He'd let me climb the big oak in his yard. From the top, I swore I could see forever. I smiled. You told me that story once. Yeah, he said softly. I forgot how much that feeling mattered. I wanted to give it to you too. Sometimes I didn't know how. I reached for his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and sure. You did, Dad, even when you thought you didn't. We walked on, hands linked, sunlight dappling through leaves overhead. The silence between us was comfortable, now the kind that holds more than words ever could. That evening, back on the couch, I watched the subtle hesitation still there, the brief pause when he searched for a memory, the careful way he set down his mug. And a deep truth settled over me. Love isn't always loud declarations or perfect recall. Sometimes it's quiet presence, steady patience, showing up even when words stumble. He said softly, thank you. For waiting. For staying. Tears pricked my eyes. You never have to thank me. You're my dad. I've always been right here. He laughed, quietly, relief and apology woven together. I needed to hear that. Over the next weeks, conversations grew longer, deeper. He shared stories from his childhood I'd never heard, pressures he'd carried young, dreams he'd quietly folded away. I opened up about my own hopes, fears, the ways I'd changed. We rediscovered each other in slow, sacred layers. One quiet Sunday on the porch, clouds drifting lazily above, he reached over and squeezed my hand. I don't know what the future holds. Some days might be harder. But this I know, you make every single day brighter just by being you. Tears slipped down my cheeks. You make every day brighter too, Dad. In that moment, the last trace of distance dissolved. It wasn't about fixing everything or erasing uncertainty. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to sit together in whatever came. That night, reflecting under soft covers, I realized the most frightening silences often hide the deepest love. I'd feared indifference, but found fierce protection instead. The revelation didn't just heal how I saw him, it reshaped how I understood love itself. Patient, imperfect, enduring. The road ahead might hold challenges we couldn't yet name. But we would walk it hand in hand, hearts open, trust lighting every step. Home wasn't just walls and lamplight anymore. It was the unbreakable connection we carried inside us. Growing stronger in the space, where silence had finally given way to truth. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you to reach out, to listen closer, to hold tighter, share it with someone who needs it. And tell me in the comments, have you ever misunderstood someone's silence only to discover it was love speaking in its quietest voice? Let's keep this conversation going.